So first off, a big welcome. Like I said, if you are brand new to Voiceflow, or maybe you've been using it for a while and just want to see this use case, welcome. A quick reminder, you can access Voiceflow on the desktop or the browser experience. Follow us on Twitter. We're very active over there and always talking about all things conversation design. And then this workshop will also be streamed on YouTube after the fact later this week. If you want to go back and review and maybe build alongside the live build you already did here, if you're not in the mood to build right now. A quick intro on myself. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Sam. I'm the growth manager at Voiceflow. You can find me at the Burnsy9 or email me at sam.burns@voiceflow.com. A little background though on myself. I'm newer to conversation design in the last year here. So as I've gone through joining the Voiceflow team and really learning the tool from the start, I thought, hey, let's take the learnings that I've had over the last year and share them with people who are starting in the space, because I'm a firm believer that conversational AI and conversation design can be for any industry, any profession, any background. So excited to apply that to an education use case today. So if you're brand new to Voiceflow or you just need a brush up, Voiceflow makes it incredibly easy to design, prototype, and launch conversation experiences across virtually any channel. Today, we'll be focusing more on a chat experience, but there's also voice experiences like Alexa or Google or an IVR phone call, for example. Like we said, we'll be focusing on an interactive study guide, perfect for back to school or anyone maybe who's in university or college who hasn't started studying yet. This semester may be a good reason to start building. To start studying. So all eyes on the chat if you can right now. I'm going to drop a few links as we get going here. So first off, if you're not familiar, each session will build from using these assets that I put together. I'm going to drop right now the starter pack for the study guide. You click on that. It's just a Google Drive link. You should be able to download any of those assets. There should be a few images in there, and just download those, and we'll be using those in the Voiceflow canvas shortly. On top of that, I'm also going to drop a link just to open Voiceflow and get started right now. There you go. If you have never created an account, a great time to do one. If you do have an account already, just log in and get ready to build with me. Let's walk through the basics of Voiceflow really quickly. Let's go over here and we're going to create a project. And if you've been in Voiceflow before, this look might be a little bit different if you haven't logged in the last month or so. We're making it a little bit different when you start to create a project, right? Because we realize conversation designers are really, they're falling into different sections when they're creating projects. So as we see on the bottom here, you can, using Voiceflow, you can one-click publish right now to Amazon Alexa, an Alexa skill, or Google Assistant, right, or Google Action. Or you can kind of open build for a voice assistant generally or a chat assistant generally. This is great for prototyping, testing your design, and even using external APIs to make your assistant or your experience that much more useful. So I will mention a few ways this study guide experience can also apply to a voice experience, but for today, we're going to use some of the new button features within Voiceflow. So let's build in chat. So everyone go ahead and click Chat Assistant. You can build in whatever language you're familiar with. I'm going to click English here and we'll create the project. Perfect. Awesome. So everyone should see a blank canvas right now, right? And as much as the blank canvas can easily feel a little bit overwhelming for people who've never been in here, I do want to give a quick overview of this new chat assistant workflow. So really, let's focus on these top two sections, right? User input and response. In a conversational experience, especially a conversational AI experience, there's a conversation between two people or two parties, the computer or the AI and the person, the human, the inputter, right? So in the response section here, this is anything that the assistant or the computer can do, right? They can serve up text, the computer can serve up, a text block here, and can say, whatever they need to say in terms of the chat experience, right? Just a simple text, or they can serve up a visual, right? A GIF or a JPEG, for example. Those blocks allow the assistant to do something. And then down here, we're looking at user input, right? And that's anything the user or the human can say, right? They can click a button, right? We can drag that out on here and make a button block. They can be prompted to say anything, right? An open-ended prompt, or we can build an intent, right? Maybe it's, I want to start the study guide, or I want to do more questions, or I'm all done, right? Any of those general intents, the conversation designer, us, needs to build those in so that the user has a very easy and human conversation with the assistant. So those are probably the best places to start if you're new to the Canvas. That's just a really good kind of overview of what we're looking at here. So now that we're about 10 minutes into the workshop, let's go ahead and just jump in and start building, right? I think that's sometimes the best place to learn and to go back and review once this is up on YouTube. If you are brand new, or if you want to learn this use case and dive a little bit deeper, this is probably the best place to start. And we'll just start building. And again, drop any questions in the chat. We'll test as we go, and we'll see what we can do. So let's picture this study guide experience, right? Maybe you're an educator, maybe you are a student, maybe you just want to build more of an FAQ quiz style game for yourself, right? We have to think about the person that's going to be using the experience, right? We want to make it incredibly easy. We want to greet them first, and then we want to make it very clear what the questions are that we're trying to tackle. So as we see here, we start the experience. Let's go ahead and drop a visual block and a text block, right? We'll call this the introduction, right? Because we need to intro the experience to the user. And if you look in, Jacqueline, we're using a chat assistant. Great, really good question. If you are joining late, we're using the chat assistant in the project creation flow, not the voice assistant, although this could be built with a voice assistant. This is a chat assistant. So now we need to, let's picture someone's, says, I want to start the study guide, and this is you're an educator and you're sending it to your students. That's probably the best way to think of it. The teacher's sending a link to the students. Students log in. They need to know what they're getting into, right? So let's visually brand this so it's a little exciting. If you go into the starter pack that everyone could download, the link is up in the chat a bit. Starter pack -study guide there. There should be an image called welcome-study guide. It should be like a yellow image there. Download that and let's drag and drop that into the image block here, right? This is the image that we use on our template experience, but a really good way to kind of be a placeholder for, what class is this, or what quiz is this? Maybe this says quiz number 4, unit 5, or it's the math quiz, right? You can brand it here visually for students that maybe prefer more visuals. But then we need to also say something. And when I mean say something, that's always going to be in the form of text, because this is a chat assistant versus that iconic Alexa voice, right, in a voice assistant. But let's make this pretty straightforward. We'll say, hi there, welcome to your quiz, right? Just a pretty straightforward welcome message that allows the student to know what they're getting into, right? So let's drag a line from where we start. We need to tell Voiceflow, right, as we build the project, where do we want this to start? We want it to start here. It's the first thing that people are going to see. Hi there, welcome to your quiz. Let's add one more text box here to really give a little bit of hand holding to the person who's starting this experience, right? We'll say, welcome to your quiz. You don't want it to just start with question 1, right? Let's say, okay, here we go. Get ready for question number 1, right? And with some of the new Voiceflow features, we can actually use these text formatting objects because it is a chat experience. Let's go ahead and have some fun and really call out with bold question number 1, right? So they know, okay, we're actually having a question. Question number 1 is coming. Let's take a look, right? Great. So let's take a really quick look at what that might look like in a test experience by clicking this start test from here. Great. We get the image. Hi there. Welcome to your quiz. Okay, here we go. Get ready for question number 1. Great. And if you ever need to get out of this view, just click the escape button or click up here. Wonderful. So now we're here, right? Let's think about this experience in terms of 3 different questions, and then it'll show everyone in this workshop, how to use those. So let's drag a text block out here, and we'll call this question 1. And the user's never going to see this, but in Voiceflow, it's really helpful to label your steps in your content blocks so that you as the designer know what's in each of these blocks. So let's drag that over here. And I got a little ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and think about this in terms of 3 questions, right? We want the experience to serve up any of the 3 questions in any random order to the person who's using this experience. So this is where we're going to go a little bit advanced, but trust me, it'll be helpful. We'll click this logic button, the logic drop down, and let's drag a random block out here, right? Great. So this random block effectively is a Voiceflow feature that allows the assistant to randomize any type of content, right? So here we see path 1, path 2. Let's click in here, and we're going to add one more path. So now we have 3 paths for the 3 questions we'll build out, right? Path 1, path 2, path 3. But before we get out of here, we want to click this no duplicates so that the assistant understands we never want the same question to be served up twice in one session to the user, right? You don't need question 1 twice. So let's click no duplicates. Great. Perfect. So now we'll click this and we'll drag this up here. I'm going to change the wording here just a bit. We'll say get ready for your first question, right? Because it's not technically question 1, 2, or 3 because we're randomizing it. So now we go into this random step, great. And we'll connect path 1 to the first question. As we go, we'll connect paths 2 and 3, obviously. So now we have question 1, right? Let's make question 1 a very simple idea of a multiple choice question, right? So let's go in and we'll say for question 1, and this will be, the chat, who invented the telescope, right? Great. We can always have some fun and underline or italicize, however you want to have fun here. You can do that with the formatting. Great. So who invented the telescope? Let's give a little bit more context to the question, and let's go in the starter pack and drag the telescope image, and we'll make a visual block here. We'll drag that, and then we'll drag the telescope image from the starter pack onto this block. Uploading. Great. And I'm going to use a custom size here, just 500 by 500, just to have it a little bit smaller. And I'm actually, just for the sake of organization on the canvas, I always like to make the canvas visibility small, right? Just we know it's the telescope, but we don't need to see it until we test, right? Great. So let's put this up here. Question 1, who invented the telescope? Right, let's take a look at what that might look like in the test. We'll click start test from here. Who invented the telescope? Great. We'll exit out of there. Awesome. So now we have the question, but now we have to build the input of what the user could actually select, right? We need to actually create the multiple choice question. So let's do this with the new fancy buttons feature. You may know the buttons feature as the choice block. That will be more in the voice assistant realm, right? Where you're verbally saying a choice or you're presented choices. The button feature is really nice for chat assistants because users can quickly select options, pre-selected options for them, which works really well for multiple choice or a quiz function, right? So let's say, we'll say multiple choice here just for organization. And then let's go through and we'll add a couple options here. So we'll say, I do not know this off the top of my head, so don't worry about that. We'll say, is it Kepler? Button 2 we'll say is George Washington. Button 3 or option 3 we'll say is Galileo. And option 4, we'll add one more button, is Napoleon. Great. So now we have 4 options here, right? So let's connect this over here. So now we're going to present the options to the user next, right? button 1, 2, 3, or 4. And a quick call out as we look at this, each button action, right? This is important, is a path, right? Whatever they select, something else will come after it. These are not intents technically, right? Because it's not a general intent where we want to present the user, an entire next step of the conversation. It's truly just a one-off path that they can select within this button step. Great. So now we have the 4 options, but we need to also let the assistant know what's right and what's wrong, right? And connect the conversation accordingly. So let's build a right and a wrong box up here, or let's say correct. Let's say right. I'm just copying and pasting here for quick. Right and wrong. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and actually right click on this block. I'm going to make this green. And I'm going to make this red, just for our ease of looking at it, right? Perfect. So if they're right, and we know the answer here is Galileo, so let's say correct. It was Galileo, right? Just something that affirms them. And we need to make sure we connect this button, right? The correct button, Galileo, to the right response. And then down here, nope, that's not correct. The answer is Galileo, right? So if they select the wrong answer, we'll want to make sure we give them the correct answer. But now we need to select every other button. If they select any of these other buttons, we need to make sure that they are served the wrong all the way. Wonderful. I'm just going to move this line so we can really clearly see it. Perfect. Great. So let's take a step back. Exhale if you don't know what just happened, or celebrate yourself if you followed along really closely. Let's take a quick look at how this question plays, right? Start test from here. Who invented the telescope? Great. And then it immediately serves up these options. Let's say we studied, we're super smart, we're an A+ student, we know it's Galileo. Let's click that and see what happens. Correct, it was Galileo. Perfect. Great. So we're going to leave this right here as is, although yes, we need to continue the assistant as we go. We'll leave this right here for now. And let's actually build out question number 2, okay? Question number 2, let's do another common question type, which would be true or false, right? So we first have to build the question, right, that we're going to ask the user. I'll zoom in a little bit here. We'll call this true or false. So let's say the question is, maybe for a science class or an anatomy class, true or false, the humerus bone is in the arm, right? So that's a true or false question. Wonderful. So now we understand the button option pretty easily, right? When we only have 2 options, right? True or false. Let's drag this over here, and we're not going to include an image because that would clearly give away the answer here as the study guide goes. So let's drag this, connect it, and we'll call this true or false as well. And then we're going to have a true button or a false button, right? Pretty straightforward, true or false. And then I like to, when I'm using repeatable components here, I really like to just select, copy and paste so that you can quickly drag instead of having to rebuild everything. Sometimes it's a little easier as you build just to do it this way. Although yes, you need to flip out the content. So in this scenario, in this question, let's access the starter pack. We have a picture of the humerus bone, which is in fact in the arm. So let's actually go in here. So if let's say they say it's true, which is correct, we'll drag this to the right response. So we'll say correct. We'll say here's a photo for reference, right? Because sometimes in a quiz, you want to be able to show the correct, right or wrong for a study guide. You want to make sure someone knows what they're getting into and where this bone in the body actually is, right? So let's click into add visual and we'll drag that humerus bone photo, creepy skeleton right there. And we'll zoom out a little bit. I think I covered up, yeah, I covered up my wrong response there. So let's actually click in just like we did before. Instead of having this full image, let's go ahead and click custom size 500 by 500 to keep it simple. And then I'm just going to make this small for the canvas just so we can, easily see and not overwhelm everything. Great. So we say correct. Here's a photo for reference. Perfect. If they say false, which is incorrect, we'll say nope, that's not correct. We'll need to give a little bit of background because this student clearly needs to do a little bit more studying. The humerus is in the arm between the shoulder and the forearm, right? See the photo for some extra study practice, something nice and supportive there. We'll say drag the visual out so we can also show, and we'll drag that same image in, custom size, small for our own sanity. Perfect. Great. So now we see true, false, correct, and incorrect. Let's test this. Actually, let's go back and make sure we got to connect path 2 of the randomizer, right? To true or false. So we know that's path number 2 that they could take. Let's do a quick test and see how we did so far. True or false? The humerus bone is in the arm. Well, I didn't study, so let's say false. Nope, that's not correct. The humerus is in the arm between the shoulder and the forearm. See the photo for some extra study practice. Great. That worked pretty easily, right? And you're seeing that the chat experience for this study guide can be a really interesting use case, I think, for teachers or maybe students quizzing each other, or maybe a student builds it for himself or herself as they create a study guide for their class and want to randomly quiz themselves as they go throughout the day. Great. And now let's build a third and final question, and let's make this one more of a visual, open-ended question, right? Not as many. You don't want to always give multiple choice. Let's say you want this person to be able to pull the name out of a hat, out of their head, right? Based on a visual you serve up, right? So let's build out the foundation. We'll click path 3 over here. We'll call this visual open-ended just for our sanity. Zoom in a little bit. I'm going to drag this down a bit so we can get around the right and wrong answers here. Perfect. So let's say, okay, so visual open-ended. Let's use this, right? If you don't know, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a very big Milwaukee Bucks fan, NBA fan. So let's use some personal trivia here. Name the All-Pro athlete and 2018, 2019 NBA MVP shown here, right? So this is a great chance to use a visual. If you look in your starter pack, probably the best image has ever been put in a starter pack is Giannis. So let's drag Giannis over to the image step here. Perfect. So now we have name the All-Pro athlete and 2018, 2019 NBA MVP shown here, and then we have a picture of that person, right? And yes, we can use this for historical figures, for political figures. However you want to craft this, it could be an object, it could be a quote card, whatever that needs to be. You can really automate that here. So now we have the question, but now let's go in and we want to make more of a choice feature out of this, right? Where we don't want to put out there 4 options. We want the person to have studied enough where they know this person and can input it, right? So let's go in, and instead of a path, let's actually make this an intent, right? And something that someone would need to input on their own. And let's say we know we need to create the correct answer. So we're going to create a Giannis intent here, right? Create. And then utterances, or the things a user might input or utter, have the utterance to invoke that intent, would go here, right? So what are the things that someone might say to invoke a Giannis intent? Well, they would probably just say Giannis because it's a pretty specific intent versus, start the experience, or go shopping, or end the experience. There's a lot of different ways you can say that. For this though, it would just be Giannis. Great. So we have the correct answer, the correct path built out. But what happens if someone says anything other, or inputs anything other than Giannis, right? That's where this no match feature comes into play. So let's click no match, and we'll actually make this a path, right? So it's a path that they could take. If the input does not match Giannis, then we take them to the incorrect path or the wrong response, right? Because anything outside of Giannis is the incorrect answer, or there's not multiple answers or inputs for this. Great. So we'll say, we can keep it as no matches for our sanity. Perfect. So we have Giannis and then no match. Let's go up here. I'm just going to copy and paste these again. Perfect. Right. So we'll say if they say Giannis, correct. This is Giannis from the Milwaukee Bucks. Perfect. And then if they say anything else, you say, nope, that's not correct. This is Giannis from the Milwaukee Bucks. David, I see your note here. Could you give another correct response like, oh, it's Giannis. I see what you're saying. Yes. So that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up, David. So that's where David is saying, what if someone types in, it is Giannis, or I know that's Giannis, right? You need to make it a little bit more of a catch-all. So let's go in here. We'll say Giannis, it is Giannis, or that's Giannis. I love Giannis. Really, that's a great point, David. Thanks for catching that. And depending on the question, you might need to go a little bit more in depth with this as well. If there are different ways you can say the same thing, but this is a great catch here. So for Giannis, Randy asks, can you use a wild card? Randy, are you referring to the wild card of like what question you get? I'll check back to Randy to see what he's saying there. Can use wild card includes. Oh, understood. Yeah, that's another great catch-all where, yes, as long as it would include that saying, then yeah, you could do that as well to really catch all. If you want to learn more about utterances and making sure that your conversation design is a really good catch-all. One, you're going to need to user test it with your friends, otherwise known as Wizard of Oz testing, right? Where you're kind of the person behind the curtain, letting that person go through and see how they interact with the design. But the utterances in general, I highly recommend heading to our tutorials and our YouTube page to see all that's possible with utterances, because it's a skill that every conversation designer needs to continue to perfect as they build out designs. Perfect. So we have Giannis, right? Correct. This is Giannis from the Milwaukee Bucks, or not, right? Perfect. So let's we're coming up on time here, so I'm actually going to test this one more time, and then I want to show you one kind of level 1.2 starter idea here. But let's test this. Make sure we did it all right. Name the All-Pro athlete, right? And we're going to say, well, we know this. This is Giannis. Correct. This is Giannis from Milwaukee Bucks, right? Let's go try here, and we'll say this is Kevin Durant. No, if that's not correct, this is Giannis from Milwaukee Bucks. Great. So we know it's working and it's firing correctly. So you might say, well, what happens after they end these, after each of these questions ends? Right now we see that the experience just ends, right? Well, I want to flip over for the sake of time. I'm going to just label this quiz. I'm going to flip over to something I just recently built before this to give everyone a quick look at what's also possible. So you'll recognize this a very similar experience, but I do want to jump in here and show one thing that's a powerful tool down here in the logic area, which is called the set. And when you're going through, right, we have someone doing all three questions, right? But we have them randomizing, not duplicating. So they keep going until they've hit all three questions. But we need the assistant to know that when questions completed equals 3, then we're going to be done. But if not, we need to loop them back around to that random step. So let's take a look in here. At the end of every question, regardless of right or wrong, right, we see a questions counter that we've built. So here we're setting questions, a variable we've created that you can just type in, right? We created a variable called questions. We see here, we're going to have an expression, old school math. Anyone who, if you remember this from math class, we're going to have questions, this variable +1, right? So the variable starts at 0. And then every time it passes this step in Voiceflow, you're adding +1 to the questions variable, right? That's just an operational step of your design, right? All of these end of questions, right? Whether it's wrong, right, are all funneling through here, right? So now we have, +1, +2, +3. So now we say, right, with the if condition, and granted this is a little bit more advanced. So if you need to go back and rewatch this, we'll also have the template, the full-on template that I'll share after this. Now we're clicking in and we have this if condition, right? If questions, the variable we already created, if the questions variable is 3, right? If it's 3 now, then we take them to the done block, right? You're all done, right? Be sure to sign up for a testing time before logging off, something like that, right? But if, right, the no match, if the question is anything but 3, right, 0, 1, or excuse me, 1 or 2, then we're going to take them down here and we're going to say, okay, here's your next question. And if we follow this path, right, all the way back, we're taking them all the way back to the randomizer. So now it's going to randomize, pick a different question, but because we've selected no duplicates, it will not reserve the same question. So the student or the user would go through this path until the questions counter function here equals 3. I hope that I wanted to show that because I think it's a part of this experience that actually makes it work and makes it valuable to someone building. But as we wrap up here, I did want to show that just because I think it's very valuable and I think it's a good way to build. So as I put this on YouTube after the event, this is a great section at the end to go revisit and look in to see how we built each of these. I'll revisit this one more time so you can click, pause and click in to just recreate this look and feel here in your design. Great. So I want to stop my share real quickly. And we're going to go back over here. Wonderful. So we did 1 through 3. Give yourself a little bit of round of applause. And know that if you built with me, that's fantastic. You built a viable study guide experience that you can use personally in a study group, in a classroom, wherever you like, even in like a company, if you wanted to send out a Q&A or something like that, right? It's a really easy way to use the button step as a multiple choice or the visual step to make a true quiz experience. So the last step in any Start with Sam workshop is going to be trying the actual template. And shout out to Mark and Emily on the growth team. I'm sure many of you have got an email from them or chatted with them or maybe even met them in person. Mark and Emily have been the champions of our incredible templates library. As you see here, this is a link that I'm going to be dropping into the chat, so you can click through to that as well. Right there. This is the more advanced study guide template. And as you see there, we've used the canvas markup feature to really walk anyone through step by step how to customize the study guide or any template, right? And a lot of what we did today is actually, I'd say steps 1, 2, and maybe even 3 of this more in-depth study guide template. But what we'll also use in this more advanced, still beginner template, would be other things like custom audio blocks. It's built for voice instead of chat, and some other conditional blocks that really customize an experience for any of the users that you are interacting with. So just something I wanted to call out. Make sure you click that template link I just dropped, and it'll add to your dashboard. And it's a great chance to work on what we just did and apply those skills to a full-scale template that you could launch as soon as by the end of today with the skills you have. So thank you for tuning in today. Like I said, the recording of this will be on YouTube after the fact. And I'm excited to see what everyone builds. So tag me on Twitter, send me a DM, or send me an email. Excited to keep starting in conversation design with all you. Have a good rest of your Tuesday.